Hey YouTube, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new, welcome here. My name is Melissa and my channel is all about psychiatric drug withdrawal reactions and recovery. So I had a really long and extremely painful process and journey myself. It was a lot longer than I wanted it to be and that I expected it to be, but I did make it to what I tell people is about 90% recovered now. I have made long videos about my entire journey coming off of antidepressants. I also took benzos, antipsychotics, anticonvulsants. I had disastrous reinstatement. I had all kinds of neurological, physical, mental symptoms that were diagnosed, movement disorder, akathisia. I was on disability. So that's just a little tidbit of my story that I wanted to share. This video today is going to be about, I took a tinnitus course, and I'll get into that in a second, but I wanted to mention I am doing one-on-one coaching. So I offer a free 15-minute consultation, 30-minute calls, 60-minute calls, and I offer them at lower rates than other places online. I also have packaged together 4-session packages for those who might want to meet a little more regularly, and those are at a further reduced rate. So I will put my online booking calendar, the link to it, in the description of this video, as well as a link to my website if you want to check out more about my bio, more about my story. And like I said, you can also see more detailed versions of my story on this channel. I've made videos about it. So I took a tinnitus course. So I wanted to talk about this because tinnitus is one of those symptoms that I see again and again and again. It's almost, it seems, a guarantee when you take psychiatric drugs that you're going to get tinnitus at some point. It's not always the case across the board, I realize, but it's one of, if not the most common symptom that I see. And it's an interesting symptom because some people are extremely distressed by it and other people aren't. So up until I got COVID 2 months ago, my tinnitus was pretty much gone. Either it was completely gone or almost completely gone, or I just didn't notice it anymore. And when I did notice it, it never bothered me. In fact, I used to say if I had tinnitus ear ringing for the rest of my life, I wouldn't be upset about it. But then once I got COVID, which COVID in itself can cause people to have tinnitus for the first time, it did ramp up again. I've been honest about this. But again, it's not one of those things that's super distressing for me, but the volume has gone up since I contracted the virus, and it is more often than it used to be or than it was before I got COVID. And so, but my most extremely distressing symptoms that I've talked about in my other videos are gone, except for if I take a medication, which is very rare, or if I have an excessive amount of stress, then I will get blips, but it's just blips. I don't go into huge crashing waves anymore. I've really come a very long way working again. I live a full life. So the reason why I found this tinnitus course online, I was actually on Instagram, and I don't typically use Instagram to search for specific topics. It's usually just a scrolling thing, or I do it strategically for my other business and for my clients of my other business. But I was just curious, and so I typed tinnitus in the search bar, and there was a profile page that came up that talked about how tinnitus is not for life, and this person had cured his own tinnitus, and he had tons and tons of testimonials on his page about people who have reversed their tinnitus. And so because it was something that had come back for me, and it's something that I see so often in coaching clients and just in the general sort of drug injury space, I just was curious to know more. So I looked into more detail at his profile and his posts and his testimonials, and I realized he offered a course. And so I personally love e-courses. I've taken several e-courses over my life for different topics and different reasons, but this one I was particularly interested in, again, because it is such a common symptom for people. And I realized that his course wasn't super expensive compared to some of the other courses I've taken and seen online. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to purchase this and see what it's about. So I thought I would share the information with you guys and sort of give you a review and an overview of what this course is about, and maybe it could be helpful for someone out there that's watching this. So it's a little bit strange because when you sign up for the course, it's called Silencing Tinnitus, I believe. Don't quote me on that. That might not be the exact right name for it, but it's by Liam Boehm is his name. He's a guy who contracted tinnitus from playing drums for an extended period of time, and he had not only tinnitus, but hyperacusis, which again, a lot of people have in this community. So hyperacusis is the sensitivity to sounds, where sounds become almost painful. They can cause all kinds of neurological and nervous system symptoms. And again, the two, tinnitus and hyperacusis, often go together. And he actually lumps some other symptoms in with tinnitus and with hyperacusis, and that's vertigo, visual snow, and pulsatile tinnitus, which are also symptoms that are quite often talked about in the drug injury community. So he claims that they're all related, and I tend to agree with him. And I do think, well, a lot of the sort of umbrella of symptoms that go with withdrawal are related. They're neurological dysfunction at their core, but he gets into a little bit of a different theory that he has. So when you sign up for the course, you take the digital course, which is typical. When you purchase a course, you get a link usually, or an email that will take you to it. So I went through the whole course in one day. It wasn't very long, but then he said that he has this book that goes along with it that he will be shipping to me. And I'm like, that's really strange. Why would you have an e-course that you then need a physical book for? But I was like, okay. And he said that the book was more comprehensive and got into more details on sort of the reasons why you contracted tinnitus potentially and how to reverse them. So here's the book. It's called Silence, and it says on the front how temporarily changing your habits and home can permanently reverse the irreversible. And then at the bottom it says everything you need to know about silencing tinnitus and all related issues. And like I said, he claims the related issues are hyperacusis, pulsatile tinnitus, visual snow, and dizziness. And he also says on here that he has the most cases of 100% silence. So I read the whole book now, and I want to explain his theory. And I thought it was interesting because, again, it could potentially overlap with what's going on for people in withdrawal. So he said that at its core, tinnitus is due to mitochondrial dysfunction. And he said it doesn't matter how you contract tinnitus, whether it was autotoxic medication, which benzos, antidepressants, and psych drugs would fall under, or noise, trauma, or stress, or pregnancy, or COVID, or all of these different reasons why people get tinnitus. But he said tinnitus is just sort of the final domino that falls. He said there's all these dominoes that are kind of stacking up over time, causing this damage or causing this mitochondrial dysfunction that then has sort of a final catalyst that tips the domino and causes the tinnitus or the perception of tinnitus. So in my own situation, I took SSRIs for 7 years and came off in only 4 weeks because I didn't know any better, and I had no tinnitus. I remember reading on the forums, it seems so common that people have ear ringing and buzzing and hissing and all of this pulsatile thumping in their ears, and I'm like, I can't relate to that at all. I didn't have any ear ringing. And then I reinstated at 2.5 years off, and I took a micro dose, and I had a pretty bad reaction, and I was playing with the doses, which I know now is very bad. I was going up and down and switching SSRIs, and then it was when I took Prozac, which was not my original SSRI. I took it for like 4 days at 2 milligrams, which I think the starting dose is typically 10 or 20, and I got tinnitus. And I was like, oh, so this is what people are talking about. And, then I ended up taking benzos and coming off those and developing movement disorder and the whole umbrella of neurological symptoms, which included tinnitus, continuing tinnitus. And it had gotten loads and loads better when I felt like I was pretty much recovered or recovering at 4.5 years off my first drug. I wasn't really thinking about withdrawal much anymore, tinnitus, but then when I got COVID, like I said, it came back. And so I read his book, and so he says mitochondrial dysfunction is at the core of it, meaning, the cells, every cell in the body is powered by the mitochondria. It's the energy producer of the cell. And he said that there's all these different things that can contribute to its dysfunction, and it's lifestyle induced. So he has what he calls dominoes, but I almost think of it more as pillars. So there's these different pillars that either lined up the dominoes or are perpetuating the tinnitus now. So there's these things that were happening in your life that were sort of causing damage underneath the surface, and then you had that final catalyst that tipped you over into full tinnitus. For all of us on this channel, it was autotoxic medication. So, and mine was from Prozac and then continued after benzos and, you know, what I just shared. So there's these different pillars he talks about, and I can't maybe quite remember them all off the top of my head, but I'll try to. So there's different things like, so nutrition is one of them. EMF, so electromagnetic frequencies, is another one. There is, what else does he talk about? So nutrition, EMF, stress, toxicity, all these different pillars. And over time, you know, typically people's issues fall into just a few of the pillars and not all of them. And so when it comes to reversing it, you have to figure out which ones probably were stacking up until that final catalyst and how to reverse them. So for me, the two biggest ones that came up were nutrition and EMF, which I'm not surprised, because even before I took this course, I had said that when I spend an excessive amount of time on my phone, and also I used to always wear Bluetooth headphones when I was coaching and when I was making these videos, and I noticed that my tinnitus was more noticeable after that. And so I wasn't surprised when I went through his course and figured out sort of my own pillars, and that they were EMF and nutrition. And I know that I haven't had good nutrition and I haven't treated my body super well over the years. I have type 1 diabetes, I have celiac disease. They're very tough diseases to have together, and they're very demanding diet wise. And so, you know, I just get burnt out, and then I get sloppy and all those things. And I know that because my celiac disease was undiagnosed for many years, it affects how nutrients are absorbed by the body because of that damage to the small intestine. So I wasn't surprised that I potentially have nutrition deficiencies, don't get enough vitamins, and also because these psychiatric drugs tend to alter the microbiome of the gut. They tend to deplete vitamins and minerals. They affect the liver. They affect all these different things. So I wasn't really surprised that that came up for me. And the EMF. So if you're someone who spends a lot of time in front of a computer screen, like me, because both of my jobs are in front of a computer. I also talk into my phone a lot. My other job, my other business as a virtual assistant is all computer work, all online work. So, and then if you live in an apartment building or a condo style building, then you get more exposure to EMFs, and there's all these different things. And like I used Bluetooth headphones, like I talked about, I do have a continuous blood glucose monitor for my diabetes that is Bluetooth enabled, and it's attached to my arm. So again, I may be just a walking like EMF radiation, I don't know. But basically he talks about, in all of these pillars, there's different things that you need to be more aware of and cognizant of and change, and either do the opposite or quit doing what is exposing you to these problems. So without getting into every detail in the book, you know, say your problem is toxicity. He talks about the issues with root canals and mercury fillings and breast implants and all of those things. And I thought it was actually quite interesting, just the way he goes into detail. And it makes sense to me, because even with protracted withdrawal and just withdrawal, it's never really made sense to me to just call it withdrawal, because again, when you reinstate, it should take all of your symptoms away. And for a lot of people, it makes you infinitely worse, or it can bring on movement disorders and akathisia. And so withdrawal never made sense in my mind. I was more like, it must be a toxicity issue, but that doesn't always make perfect sense either, because then how come everybody who takes these medications doesn't have toxicity issues or go into withdrawal? I don't know. So maybe mitochondrial dysfunction is part of what's underneath the surface for us in withdrawal. Maybe it isn't. I don't know. He claims that for tinnitus and that grouping of symptoms specifically, that is the problem. And so he said, like, if you commit to he says, 6 months is the average, sort of, to commit to all these lifestyle changes, depending on the pillars that are relevant to you, then you can and will reverse tinnitus permanently. And he's done so himself. He's done so with tons of clients, even those who are injured or who develop tinnitus from benzodiazepines and all of these wonderful drugs that we've all taken. So I don't know. I think I'm going to so I've made a list of my own contributing factors and how to sort of reverse them. He said that diet, which I think is also interesting, only accounts for about 10% of reversing tinnitus. And I've said in videos that I don't personally believe that diet is the answer per se to solving withdrawal. Now, I do believe that eating as cleanly as possible and avoiding neurotoxic substances in food like products and excitotoxic things like aspartame and MSG is good, but I don't think there's sort of one size fits all diet, because there's people who have healed from raw vegan, there's people who go carnivore, lion diet, keto. For other people, keto makes things infinitely worse. So I think with any type of condition, there's never a one size fits all diet. So I thought that was interesting because, again, I agree with that. However, I did recently make a video about histamine, and I do think that some of us, or maybe more than just some of us, have underlying histamine issues, because benzos are mast cell stabilizers. Mast cells are what house and release histamine in the body. So it makes sense that if things are sort of suppressed from taking benzos, when you come off, then, the histamine is way too high in your body. I've also heard that benzos deplete the DAO enzyme, which is what the body needs to break down histamine in the body and release it, so it doesn't sort of pile up and stock up and cause issues in the body. There's a huge wide range of symptoms that mast cell activation syndrome and histamine intolerance cause. A lot of them are similar to withdrawal, and I've also talked about long COVID, how a lot of those symptoms are similar. There's definitely, I feel like, a common denominator here, and I don't know exactly what it is. It's probably not just one thing. Maybe it is mitochondrial dysfunction. Maybe it is, to me, it's a combination of toxicity problems. I think there is a withdrawal component for sure, like changes to the brain and nervous system from these substances, from these drugs that we take. Maybe mitochondrial dysfunction, maybe some histamine intolerance. I do think that there's never sort of one answer for anything, but I thought this was an interesting book and an interesting course. So if any of you find that tinnitus is a significant symptom for you, I encourage you to just look into this. Again, his name is Liam Boehm. You can see, don't research his name, especially on Reddit and stuff. I mean, of course you can, but just like any forum, just like Benzo Buddies, just like the forums in the drug injured community, there's so much negativity, there's so much criticism and suffering that, and there's people who claim this guy's a scammer, and I don't believe he is. I think that we've, as a society, come to look to doctors for everything and have the answers for everything, but as you probably know, doctors rarely, if ever, look for or get to the root cause of anything. And so people are searching online for alternatives. I mean, that's why there's benzo coaches. That's why there's people who, even for my skin issues that I developed after COVID-19, I was searching for eczema coaches on Instagram. And there's several different women, they're all women, who have cured their eczema and or chronic hives, all of these different things, and all across the board, whether it's tinnitus, eczema, hives. Everybody that I've seen that has reversed their problems, even withdrawal people, they always say it's multifaceted. They all talk about mindset, they all talk about diet, they all talk about potential supplementation, or like just underlying causes and lifestyle factors. So I do think that there's something to it. And to me, like, again, we look to doctors for answers. Doctors will always say that tinnitus is for life, it's permanent, but yeah, you have all these people who say that they've reversed theirs regardless of cause. And so I think I'm not one of those people who needs scientific studies to back everything up, because I've been so put off by pharma and the medical system that I'm interested in people's stories who have reversed their conditions, because obviously they've done something or know something that the doctors aren't sharing. So I think it's interesting anyway. So just some food for thought. If you are interested in looking into it, then he has an Instagram page. It's called Liam Stops Tinnitus. You might think he's a scammer. You might think he's a snake oil salesman. I don't know. But I think there's definitely something to all of these different people curing their chronic conditions that the doctors will say are incurable. So yeah, that's been my experience, and I think I'm going to start implementing some of these things, and I'll let you guys know. I'll keep you updated on my progress, and I'll see you next time. Bye.